Hello, everybody. I am Mrs. Poppet, and this is my place. It's so nice to see you again today, and I'm so glad you came for another story time. I've picked one called Snow White and Rose Red. Now, you might think that has to do with Snow White and the seven dwarfs, but it doesn't. It's about a little girl named Snow White and her sister, Rose Red. Snow White and Rose Red. There once was a poor widow who lived in a little cottage by the woods. In front of the cottage was a garden with two beautiful rose bushes. One bush bloomed with white roses and the other with red roses. The widow had two children who were just like the roses. One was called Snow White, while the other was called Rose Red. They were good, hard-working, and cheerful as any two children in the world. Snow White was quieter and more gentle than Rose Red, who loved to run about the meadows and fields, looking for flowers and catching butterflies. Snow White would sit at home with her mother, helping with the housework or reading aloud to her when there was no work to be done. The two children loved each other so much that they walked hand in hand whenever they left the cottage. Snow White would say, "We will never leave each other," and Rose Red would answer, "Not as long as we live." And their mother would add, "Whatever one has, the other should share with the other." Often they would walk in the woods hand in hand, gathering red berries. The animals came up to them without fear. A little hare would eat a cabbage leaf right out of their hands. A roebuck grazed beside them, and Hart bounded joyfully past them, while the birds sat in their branches singing their merry songs. No accident ever befell Snow White and Rose Red. If they stayed late in the woods and night came, they would lie side by side on a patch of moss and sleep until morning, and their mother knew that they were safe. One night in the woods they saw a lovely child in a shining white dress sitting near where they lay. The child stood up and smiled at them, but said nothing and walked away. When they looked around, they saw that they had been sleeping on a cliff top, and if they had walked a few steps further in the darkness, they would have fallen over the edge. Their mother told them that they had met the angel who watches over good children. Snow White and Rose Red kept their mother's cottage very clean and very tidy. In summer, Rose Red brought her mother a bunch of flowers every morning, with one rose from the red bush and another from the white. She put them beside her bed before she woke up. In winter, Snow White lit the fire, hung the kettle on the hook. The kettle was made of brass, but it shone like gold because it had been so well polished. In the evenings, when the snow was falling, their mother would say, "Snow White, go and bolt the door," and then she would read aloud to them by the hearth while the two girls sat and span. Beside them lay a lamb on the floor, and behind them on a perch sat a little white dove. One evening when they were sitting cozily together, someone knocked at the door. "Quick, Rose Red, go and open the door," their mother said. "It must be a traveler seeking shelter." Rose Red drew back the bolt, thinking it would be some poor weary man, but it was not. A bear thrust his big black head through the doorway. Rose Red cried out and sprang back. The lamb bleated, the little dove fluttered up in the air, and Snow White ran and hid behind her mother's bed. But the bear spoke to them. "Do not be afraid. I will do you no harm. I am half frozen, and I only wish to warm myself a little in your house." "You poor bear," said their mother. "Lie down by the fire, but be careful not to singe your fur." Then she called, "Snow White, Rose Red, come out. The bear will not hurt you. He can be trusted." They both came forward, and very cautiously the lamb and the dove came nearer until they were no longer afraid. "Children," said the bear, "beat the snow a little out of my fur." They fetched a broom and swept the fur clean while he stretched out by the fire and much at ease growled contentedly. Soon the girls got to know and trust their clumsy guest and began to play mischievous games with him. They tugged at his fur with their hands and put their feet on his back and rocked him back and forth. They took a hazel branch and beat him, and when he growled, "Rrr," they laughed. The bear didn't mind at all, but if they were too rough, he cried, "Leave me alive, children. Snow White, Red Rose shall strike your suitor dead." When it was time to go to sleep, their mother said to the bear, "In God's name you may stay and lie by the hearth, and you will be sheltered from the cold and bad weather." As soon as the gray dawn came, the two children let the bear out, and he trundled off over the snow into the woods. From then on, the bear came back every evening at the same time. He laid down by the hearth and let the children play with him as much as they wished. They were now so used to him coming that they did not bolt the door until their black companion had come in. When spring came, the outside world was green once more, and the bear said to Snow White, "Now I must be going away, and I cannot come back all summer." "Where are you going, dear bear?" asked Snow White. "I must go into the wood and guard my treasures from the wicked trolls. In winter, when the ground is frozen hard, they have to remain below and cannot work their way out. But now that the sun has thawed the earth, they will break through. They will search and steal. Whatever they can take down into their holes cannot easily be brought back into the sunlight." Snow White was sad to see her say goodbye to her friend. When she drew back the bolt of the door and the bear pushed his way out, his fur caught on the latch and a piece of his hide was torn off. Snow White thought she caught a glimpse of gold shining through underneath, but she couldn't be sure. The bear hurried away and soon disappeared among the trees. After a while, their mother sent the children into the wood to gather firewood. They found a large tree felled on the ground. Next to the trunk, something was jumping up and down in the grass, but they couldn't make out what it was. When they went nearer, they saw it was a dwarf with a wrinkled old face, wearing a long, snow-white beard. The end of the beard was caught tight in the cleft of the tree, and the little man was jumping like a dog on a leash, not knowing what to do. He stared at the girls with his fiery red eyes and screamed, "What are you standing there for? Can't you come and help me?" "What has happened to you, little man?" asked Rose Red. "Silly little goose," answered the troll. "I wanted to split the tree to make logs for the kitchen fire. Thick logs burn the little food we eat. We don't guzzle as much as you greedy folk. I already hammered in the wedge, and everything was going fine, but the cursed wooden wedge flew out, and the tree trunk snapped so quickly I got my lovely white beard stuck in the tree, and now I can't get away. And you silly, smooth milk faces are laughing. Bah! How repulsive you are!" The children tried hard, but they could not pull the beard out. It was jammed in tight. "I'll go get some people to help," said Rose Red. "You mutton-headed chumps!" screeched the dwarf. "What do you want to fetch more people for? You're too many already. Can't you think of anything better?" "Don't be impatient," said Snow White. "I'll soon get you out." She took her scissors out of her pocket and cut off the end of his beard. As soon as the dwarf was freed, he seized a sack of gold that was hidden behind the roots of the tree and muttered to himself, "Uncivilized rabble cutting off a piece of a good beard, a pox on you!" Then he slung the sack on his back and off he went without even looking back. Some time later, Snow White and Rose Red went to the stream to catch some fish for supper. As they came to the banks of the stream, they saw something that looked like a big grasshopper hopping towards the water's edge as if it were about to jump in. They ran up and saw it was the dwarf. "Where are you going?" asked Rose Red. "Surely you don't want to jump in the water." "I'm not a fool," cried the dwarf. "Can't you see the cursed fish is trying to pull me in?" The little man had been sitting there fishing when a gust of wind had blown his beard into his fishing line, and it had gotten all tangled in. When the fish take a bite on his hook, the weak dwarf couldn't pull it out of the water. Then, as the fish struggled to free itself, it pulled the dwarf after it, and although he tried to clutch its straws and stalks and rushes to steady himself, he knew he would soon be dragged in. The girls had come along in the nick of time. They held the dwarf tight and tried to free his beard from the line, but the beard and the line were hopelessly entwined. There was nothing for it but to take out the scissors and cut away some more of the beard. When the dwarf saw, he screamed, "Do you think that's civilized, you toads, to ruin a person's face? Wasn't it enough to spoil the end of my beard without cutting off the best part of it? I won't be able to show myself to my own people. Buzz off and run till your feet fall off." Then he fetched a sack of pearls, which was lying in the reeds, and without saying another word, he hauled it away and disappeared behind a stone. Soon after, their mother sent the two girls off to town to buy thread and needles, tape, and ribbons. As they walked over the hearth through town, they saw a great bird hovering in the air, slowly circling above them. It sank lower and lower until it finally plunged down by one of the many rocks that lay strewn over the hearth. Immediately afterwards, the girls heard a piercing cry of pain. They ran towards the sound and saw, to their horror, that the eagle had seized hold of the dwarf and was about to carry him off. The kind children held tight to the little man and struggled with the eagle until he let go of his prey. When the dwarf had recovered from his fright, he cried in his screeching voice, "Couldn't you have treated me a little more gently? My thin coat is torn into shreds and holes, you awkward, clumsy klutz." Then he grabbed a sack of jewels and crept under the rocks into his hole. The girls were already used to his ungrateful ways and continued on their way to town. When the girls came back from town over the heath towards home, they saw the dwarf once again and took him by surprise. He was emptying his sack of jewels, for he did not think anyone would be passing by so late. The evening sun shone on the sparkling jewels, and they glittered and gleamed so gloriously that the children stopped to look at them. "Why are you standing and staring?" screamed the dwarf, and his ashen gray face turned scarlet with rage. He carried on shouting until they heard a loud growling, "Roar!" and a black bear came out of the wood. The dwarf jumped in fright, but the bear was blocking the entrance to his hidey hole, so he could not escape. "Dear bear, spare me!" he cried out in terror. I will give you all my treasures. See my beautiful jewels lying there? Grant me my life. I'm such a scraggly little creature you would hardly feel me between your teeth. Look, take these two godless girls. They would be tender morsels for you. They are as juicy as young quails. Eat them up, for heaven's sake." The bear took no notice of his words. He gave the evil creature one single blow with his paw, and he never moved again. The girls had run away, but the bear called after them, "Snow White, Rose Red, do not be afraid. Wait, I will come along with you." When they heard his voice, the girls recognized their good friend, and they waited. When the bear was beside him, his bearskin fell off, and there he stood, a handsome young man dressed all in gold. "I am the king's son," he said. "I was bewitched by the evil dwarf who stole my treasure and condemned me to roam the woods as a wild bear, until I was released by his death. He got what he deserved." Years later, Snow White was married to the prince and Rose Red to his brother, and they shared the great treasures that the dwarf had gathered in his hole. Their mother lived for many years peacefully and happily with her children in the prince's palace. She took her 2 rose bushes with her, and they grew in front of her palace window, and every year they bore the loveliest roses, white and red. Wasn't that such a delightful story? Those sisters truly loved each other, and they really did a lot just because they were kind. They helped whenever they could help somebody in need, and that's important. If you can help somebody, you should always try to do it because you might be saving them a whole lot. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that story, and I look forward to our next story time. Bye!